James, tell us about Kobudo.
Kobudo. Well, the weaponry of traditional martial arts like karate and things, they do encompass what I call actual dedicated weapons. But many of the weapons, so-called weapons, are actually implements. In a military term, they might be called field expedient weapons. Things that we find around us that really aren't weapons, but we turn them into weapons. And so this is why we see things like grain flails. The kama is a sickle, and it's for harvesting the grain, the crops. It's really not a weapon proper, but since it's there, we can use it like that. The same for the kai, the oar. It's not a weapon, but it makes a pretty good one. So we see that in Kobudo weaponry, many of the weapons are impromptu, field expedient, weapons of desperation. Since we can't own, in quotes, real weapons, let's turn what we have into a weapon. It would be the equivalent today, if that happened today, of saying that a pitchfork, a farm implement, could be used as a tiger fork or trident, a true weapon, or a spear. A hammer, a claw hammer, could be used in your self-defense, similar to a blunt tomahawk or something like this. So I think that the great masters of the past understood that real weapons would have been more valuable, but since there was a ban on them, they circumvented that government ban and just went another direction, used their creativity, the environment, and said, well, these things around us, they could be good weapons too. And that's what we see. This is why, at least in my own study, I enjoy the study of weapons, field expedient weapons, but I'm more dedicated towards real weapons, such as knives, swords, guns, this type of thing, rather than just always depending on the impromptu weapons, trying to make them fill the bill of the real weapon. They can, but only in the most shallow sense. And I don't mean that as an insult to those who do Kobudo, not in the slightest. It's a brilliant step of field expediency. It's a great idea. But if you don't need to do that, then why use a farm implement if you can actually legally own a spear? Why use a blowgun if you can own a rifle? So today it's still a good idea, and it's a good place to start. But as we know, since they're not actual weapons, they won't carry the same authority as perhaps the real thing should or would. So field expedient stuff is a whole separate area of endeavor. I know that the great French master at arms, Fred Perrin, he can turn almost anything into a very deadly weapon. He has that ability. He's a master of it, and I admire that. And it shows that creativity, not just sitting around at home, but in the heat of battle. Someone has that creativity that goes in that MacGyver-like line and saves people's lives, can make something out of nothing and defend themselves. I remember at the Riddle of Steel, Fred Perrin doing this and showing us a variety of impromptu weapons that could be made from just a great number of things. It was really an amazing demonstration and class. So I know that field expedient weapons have value. And the Kobudo-ri, because of how it's been designed due to the laws and all that at the time, reflect that. So I think it's really neat. In my own way, I also feel that by having real weapons, if you can, will hold you even better. So if you think, well, I'll do good having this pair of nunchakus, well, you might do better if you just actually had a sword or a baseball bat. And that's what we're talking about, is just understanding that vein of weaponry. Because many people don't seem to. They hold it to real high regards, as though a nunchaku was, almost as deadly as a pistol. I myself don't see that. In fact, I see it as a hard-to-control weapon that, as cool as it is, at least, it's taught in the FMA, toyagtabak, but I really don't have any use for it myself. I'm more of a direct go-to individual, and meaning I'll actually fight with them, and less of a hobbyist that's just concerned about having fun. And many are hobbyists. Their goal is to have fun, enjoyment, just get their coordination better. And I think these things are great for that. So some have asked about the Kobudo, what I think of that and why. And so I hope I've answered that and have not at least stepped on anyone's toes or got out of line. Because as I said, I really see the whole thing as great. But if I had my druthers, I would not, unless I was forced to, use field expedient weapons. I would rather have dedicated weapons that do dedicated jobs. And keep those cards and letters coming in, those emails, and I'll try to answer even more. I really appreciate it. I'm James Keating. Thanks for listening.